So I think first and foremost, it's important for me to throw some light on what the evolution of the legal profession has been like. And here's, I'm going to be just restricting my conversation to the developments that we have seen in the Indian legal profession. So I think a good period to start from would be pre-independence, before we became a republic and got independence. So in that time, so as we know, law is actually one of the oldest professions in India and in the world. If you were ever to go back and read about it. And if I talk about just in the Indian context itself, if we look at lawyers in pre-independent India, you would see that how they were actually instrumental and they played like a very pivotal role in the Indian freedom struggle. They had such a large presence in the Indian Congress. You could see that they had such an overarching presence in the in the drafting committee of the constitution while the Constitution of India was being drafted. So you could really see that they were the flag bearers of change. And here I think I take cue from the fact that Arun very rightly used this word empowering. Law just as a field and as per what you study makes you so aware of your rights, your duties. It also very comprehensively elaborates on what are your powers, what are the powers of the state, and all of this knowledge that you have today really puts you in a position of empowerment, right? Because you know exactly what are the boundaries of right and wrong are that have been set in the setting that you are in, the country that you are in, what is the right, what is wrong as per the law. So that knowledge definitely puts you on a pedestal in comparison to others. And that's probably the reason why that a lot of our forefathers who were lawyers were actually instrumental in getting independence for the nation, because while they were studying law, they realized that there's certain human rights that all of us are entitled to. I mean, there's certain basic tenets of humanity that must not be violated, and they saw all of that being questioned while we were under the imperial rule. So in the first phase that I'd like to say, this was, the legal profession 1.0 in India, right? So where you could see that your lawyers were the ones who were really instrumental in getting that freedom for our country. Post-independence, which is post-1947, is when the second phase started. I like to call this legal 2.0. I know you've gone through an industrial revolution 4.0 presentation, so maybe you can draw a parallel to that in the legal context while I'm explaining this to you right now. So in 2.0, right, what happened then? So we had a new nation. As a new nation, we had a recently drafted constitution. We were still in the process of adopting certain laws from the the British Raj. We were trying to see that whether we wanted to adopt them as it was or make modifications as per the needs of our new young nation. So the law was in a state of flux. It was still in a state where it was developing and getting created, right? So at that point of time, if I were to ask you, can you think of lawyers, prominent lawyers who come to your mind who come from that era? So here I'm specifically talking about the period from 1947 to the late 80s. Can you think of some prominent lawyers who come to your mind? I want some responses. I'm looking at the chat box, so I would love to hear from you guys. Any prominent lawyers who come to your mind from that era? Guys, I would like to make this interactive. Lovely. Somebody said Mahatma Gandhi. Very true. But Mr. Gandhi passed away quite early right after we got our independence. Anybody else? Any other responses? B.R. Ambedkar? Yes, Utsav. Think more recent. Have we heard of Mr. Ram Jethmalani? One of the leading lawyers of the country that we have seen, one of the most celebrated lawyers of our country, Nani Palkiwala, absolutely wonderful. So, if you think about these era of lawyers, right, G.K. Gokhale. So if you think about, a Nani Palkiwala, you think of a Soli Sorabji, you think of a Ram Malani. So think about what are the areas they specialized in. Their specialization areas were, constitutional law, criminal law, civil law. So basically more of the building blocks of the law, because like I said, we were in a stage where we were still developing our law. So in that period of time, if you were somebody who had a good grip on constitutional law, you were somebody who understood criminal law very well, you understood civil law really well, you were bound to do very well in legal 2.0 in that era, right? So this defined success for a lawyer in that time. So this kind of ended in the late 80s. Now, I want you guys to go back in history a little bit and tell me what happened in 92 and 93 that changed the face of the Indian industry. There's one landmark event that has happened in the 92 and 93 that's completely changed the way that we have looked at the industry. Very correctly pointed out by Pratham, which is, the liberalization, privatization, globalization that happened. Suddenly, overnight, the Indian economy had opened its doors to multinational corporations. Now, I want you guys to take a pause here and think about this, right? When we talk about the law is constantly developing, evolving, as and when there are changes happening in society. So as society is evolving, law is evolving. Any new thing that happens in society definitely provokes and creates a huge question mark for the law to evolve and for the law to actually, create new regulations to regulate those new developments. So when the liberalization, privatization, and globalization happened in the Indian economy, suddenly India felt the need to have more robust economic laws. Suddenly it was, realized that we needed better company laws, we needed better commercial laws, right? So this was the time that we saw the boom of industries throughout the country. Right now, when all of this was happening, this is when also simultaneously, right, even in the law, we needed more and more people who understood the commercial side of, businesses. They understood that, what are the challenges that a global multinational corporation would actually face in India when they were to set up operations here. It was really the time for the growth of corporate law. So Mr. Salve, who was one of the very, very prominent lawyers of our country, he was somebody who actually grew in that period. So this legal 3.0 that I'm talking about today is when you saw the growth of lawyers like Harish Salve, Mr. Nishit Desai. These were people who had a very strong background in numbers, in accountancy, in management, and after that they've studied law. So in fact, Mr. Salve is actually a chartered accountant. He was a practicing chartered accountant, and while he was practicing with his father in his chartered accountancy firm, one of their clients actually suggested that, since you have such a good understanding and grip of companies and commercial matters, it would actually be a very good idea for you to do law. And probably that was the best idea somebody had given to him in his life. And we know the rest is history, and he is where he is today. Right. So that period really saw the growth of a lot of people like him who actually had a specialized knowledge of, management, had a specialized knowledge of, the commercial, and had a great commercial sense of things. And then they ended up, applying that knowledge while, they were practicing the law. So it really saw the growth of these kind of corporate and commercial lawyers, and which ensured that they did exceedingly well. Another noteworthy example of that time would be Mr. Nishit Desai. Now, today, again, we are in a state of flux. I saw a mention of Industry 4.0 in my previous speaker's presentation. So can somebody tell me that what is this Industrial Revolution 4.0? So if I have to tell you in a line that what is this Industrial Revolution 4.0, it is a phase that, I would say, which has already started and we're well into it, which means that there's a complete automation that is happening of industries today. very correctly pointed out by Unnati, right? One of the path-breaking technologies that are synonymous with 4.0 is artificial intelligence. Similarly, you have technologies such as machine learning, deep learning, a lot of use of data analytics, data sciences, that is completely taking center stage in the way industry is evolving and developing today. Now, what does that mean for law? Like I said, there is a there is a correlation between what happens in the world very closely with how the law is evolving. As you can imagine, today technology is taking center stage in most of the professions today, right? I mean, we're talking about, AI powered robots. We're talking about, chatbot services. We are talking about alternate reality. We're talking about, augmented reality. We're talking about VR. So we're talking about so many different path breaking technologies today. We're talking about driverless cars. So clearly now this is going to have a huge impact even on the legal profession. Right, so coming to the first point about how it's going to change, working in the legal profession. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about something called the IBM ROS. Anybody heard of IBM ROS? Okay, so the IBM ROS is the world's first artificial intelligence powered robot lawyer, which is supported by the technology of IBM called IBM Watson. So what this basically does is it's an AI powered robot that's fed with like huge databases in which you can enter certain keywords of the dispute that you're working on as a lawyer, the kind of legal issues that you're facing, and on basis of the repository of cases that are fed into IBM ROS, IBM ROS is able to give you like a suitable and favorable, I would say, response as to what is the law on that particular dispute, and if there have been similar cases that have been fought in the courts on those particular dispute. Now, what does that mean for the profession today? So usually, people when they go and work in law firms, or they go and join litigation chambers to pursue their career after law school, the first job that you're given as a junior lawyer is a lot of research work, right? Because from day one itself, you're not placed in court, because first you are expected to learn the ropes, do research, understand the law better, and then you're in a good place for you to go and argue the matter yourself. So this entire function of research, of pulling out relevant case law, of finding out what is the applicable law in that particular matter, all of that is being automated today by all of these new technologies that we have coming in. Now, what does that mean for lawyers? Does that mean that we are going to be in a situation where lawyers are going to be totally replaced by robots? Do you think we are going to reach a situation in the future where you are only going to have robotic lawyers and you're not going to have humane lawyers? So robot lawyers are not going to replace human lawyers. And why is that so? Let's understand the nature of profession. Like medical, even in the case of law, people come to lawyers when they are facing a problem. They want somebody who can actually listen to them, can understand the complexities and intricacies of the problem that they're going through. They want somebody on the other side to be empathetic. They want somebody to be a solution provider. And all of these things that I have listed out to you are some things, are qualities that robots do not have. They do not have that much of human intelligence, emotional intelligence at this point of time. So clearly there is always going to be the need for a human face in the front, and that human interface will always exist. But having said that, it is also extremely important for us to understand that we need to build our skill sets in areas which are not going to be replaceable by machines. So like I said, building a humane approach, having, being a solution provider, being the person who defines the strategy, like in case of a matter, in case of a merger or acquisition, all of that cannot come from a robot at this point of time. So when you guys are studying at law school, when you're studying law, it is important for you to focus on developing those skills and developing yourself as a professional in those areas, because that's what's going to give you a cut above the rest, and that's what's going to make you relevant in a market that's going to be dominated by machines, right? Now, the second thing, like I was saying, what is the other thing that is going to get triggered by the onset of all of these new technologies is the fact today, for example, let's take the situation of driverless cars, right? If I talk about driverless cars today, Do you think at this point of time, do we have the applicable legal regime that is in place for us to deal with an incident in Indian courts in case there's an accident involving a driverless car? Correct, we don't have the legal regime at this point of time. I mean, if today there's supposed to be, if god forbid there's an accident and there's a mishap that's committed by a driverless car, nobody today knows that how are you supposed to attribute responsibility in that, in that scenario. Who shall actually be responsible in this sort of an accident? Now what this requires is, this requires creation of law. New law will have to be created, understanding the nuances that is going into creating this kind of technology, to be able to understand that where does the liability of the manufacturer of these vehicles end, and where does the negligence, what is permissible in terms of what is going to be considered a negligent act by these particular manufacturers. Now what that really means is that for the new lawyers who are coming in today, we actually need more lawyers who have knowledge on these lines, who actually have a good sense and understanding of these path breaking technologies, have the technical knowledge about this, and along with that have also studied the law, so that they are able to effectively help in two aspects. One is helping in creating the law, new law that is going to be created to tackle these sort of issues. And second is also that when the court is facing these kind of matters, to be able to help that how should these matters be dealt with in court, and to effectively represent these companies. Another example would be metaverse. I'm sure all of you guys are hearing about metaverse, right? And alternate parallel universe, that is virtual universe, that is being created. Now imagine, we are also, I'm not sure if you guys have read this in the newspapers, but there have been incidents of stalking that have been reported on the metaverse. There have been criminal incidents that have been reported in the metaverse. Now the big question is, how do the Indian courts deal with this? Because we really do not have any law in this regard yet. So moving forward, guys, these are the kind of opportunities that you guys will have to tap into. We need people who understand what is metaverse, what is this parallel virtual identity that we are creating in metaverse, what are the kind of crimes that can exist in the virtual world, how do we attribute liability in it, how do we nail these perpetrators, and what is the kind of punishment that we should be rolling out. So there is this huge opportunity that is being created in this entire area, and this is what legal 4.0 is about today, right? We need more lawyers who are humane, we need lawyers who have a good grip on technology, and we need lawyers who are able to mix that knowledge of technology along with law and actually be the future solution providers of the legal profession. Right now, having traced the evolution cycle of the legal profession, I think it's also important for me to throw some light on what are the kind of opportunities that you will have that will be created post you getting out of law school. So if you were ever to talk to your parents or probably your grandparents, right, they would actually tell you that people who were probably doing extremely bad in class, right, who are really the flunkies of class, would end up joining the legal profession, right? But let me tell you, that situation has totally changed today with the coming in of the national law schools, the 5-year integrated law program, post liberalization, privatization, globalization, and opening of these really professional law firms that you have, with all the global corporations coming to the country today, them setting up these comprehensive and robust legal departments. There's really a lot more that the law has to offer today in terms of opportunities. If you ever talk to your parents about the law, a stereotypical image that they would have in their mind would be of a person standing in the black robe in court and probably dramatizing it a little bit, but thinking of Sunny Deol Singh Tariq pe Tariq. But that has totally changed today. If I talk about the kind of opportunities you have available today after law school, there are plenty. You want to go the conventional route, then you can obviously feel free to join the litigation profession. If you are somebody who's interested to be a judge, wanting to pursue a career in judiciary, that is also available to you right after law school. You can write any of the state judiciary examinations. If you're somebody who wants a structured, more structured way of, approaching the legal profession, you don't want to be in court, but you want to be more on the strategy side of things and work in more of a company like setup, then a firm is a great place for you to envisage a legal career for yourself. Similarly, most of the multinational corporations today, be it a Wipro, Infosys, IBM, Microsoft, etc., all of them have very comprehensive legal departments, in-house legal departments, which actually employ hundreds of lawyers today in India. So that is also an option that is available for you today. If you're somebody who's not really wanting to be in a situation where you're defending the existing law, but you're actually interested in the creation of law aspect of it, we have a lot of think tanks, policy think tanks that are mushrooming in India that work very closely with different ministry, different departments of the governments to actually help them draft the law. So that is also an option that's available to you. Academics and research is mushrooming and how in India with the, new wave of universities that are coming in India, with this new wave of research culture. If you see any of the universities today, a lot of new promising research centers are being created. So if you want to be in the research side of things and actually really understand the ramifications of very important, laws and legal qualities on, different people's lives and ways of life, then a research center is a great thing that you can do. And there are lots of opportunities available for you in that area. Let's talk about civil services examination. I mean, for the past few years, if you see any of the top 10 rankers of the civil services examination, one or two of them definitely come from law school. So it's a great combination. I mean, if you're somebody who's envisaging a career in the government, you want to work in the administrative services, then it's absolutely fantastic if you have a backing in the law, because that will definitely be very helpful in an administrative career. If you're somebody interested in international relations, then again, your knowledge of international law and just studying the subjects of law would prove to be very beneficial. And it's a great stepping stone if you're looking at a career of working, in an international organization like the United Nations or any of the other sister concern organizations and organs of the UN, then that's also a great option available to you. Even if you're somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, I mean, I don't know how many of you have heard of this company called Sleepy Owl, which is a company that makes coffee. It's actually a company that is created by a bunch of lawyers and law students. So if you're somebody who has the entrepreneurial bug, then let me tell you, a career in law, studying law is a great idea, because, well, if you want to run your business in India, it's very important for you to understand the legal landscape of the country. And that's what, the law degree would do for you. So that is also an option that is very much available for you today. If you're somebody who wants to get into consulting, so any of the top consulting companies like the Boston Consulting Group, Bain, KPMG, McKinsey, if they are companies that excite you, I must tell you, they actually come to hire lawyers at law schools as management consultants. So definitely it's a great option that is available. So as you can see, the law truly has become very, very multidimensional in terms of the opportunities that we offer. Politics is an option that's always available to lawyers. If you see any of the top leading politicians today, at some point of time, they've either studied law or been practicing lawyers. So I definitely think that the kind of education that you get at law school, I mean, the way, the kind of activities we work on our communication skills. I mean, the kind of knowledge that we acquire, which is very broad in terms of length and breadth, because as you must know that, the LLB degree that we do, which is the law degree in the integrated 5-year program, we don't only end up studying law. There's another degree that we study with it, which is either BBA, BA, BSc, bachelor's in political science, etc. So the kind of length or breadth we cover in that 5 years is really, really wide. And definitely, it is something that really gives us a lot of knowledge and makes us very, very holistic. Having said that, I also would like to talk to you about that, like I was mentioning earlier, with now the penetration of technology, there are a lot of new job roles that are also being created where we desperately need a lot of young lawyers to actually take up those positions. We have jobs like the legal technologists. We have jobs like legal process designers. We have jobs like, legal entrepreneurs. So as you must know, right, the law is very notorious, especially in India, for having a huge pendency of cases, right? And now with the coming in of technology, I think everybody has started talking about that, how we can use technology very effectively to reduce the pendency of cases in India. And also how we can actually use technology to automate a lot of the mundane functions of law to improve the efficiency of the justice delivery system in India today. So now this has opened a lot of opportunities. So we need people who understand technology and who are able to provide technological solutions to the issues that we are facing in proper legal, addressal of legal issues. So these are new kind of roles that are opening up today, where we require lawyers, who are interdisciplinary and who have knowledge of both areas. Similarly, like I was saying, legal process designer. I mean, it may sound, like it seems like a very niche sort of a job role, but it actually isn't. Anybody you take feedback from, somebody who's not coming from the legal profession, they'll always tell you that laws are extremely convoluted and very difficult to understand, and you really don't know in so many regulations and laws that exist in India that which is the law which is applicable, right? So there's a problem of accessibility to law, if I were to say correctly. So what we are, a legal process designer does is, using their, techniques of design and design thinking, they put law forth to common man in such a way that they are able to understand the law better, and they are able to understand the legal mechanisms better. So really imagine that if you have somebody doing something like this is really going to end so many struggles that the common man faces with, interfacing with the legal sector today. So really, there are so many of these interesting multidisciplinary roles that are coming up today, for which it's important that if any of you are looking at pursuing a career in law, it's important for you to prepare accordingly on those lines. Which brings me to the third part of my presentation, which is, how do you identify which is the sort of law school that you need to go to? I always say today that, today's student is highly empowered. You have all the knowledge that is available to you in your palm, on your fingertips, through your mobile phone. It's very important for you guys to always ask the relevant question, right? So when you guys are, approaching, prospective law school or prospective university that you want to pursue your law degree in, it's important for you to actually, read the brochure, to actually see what is it that you're going to be studying in the 5 years while you're at law school today. Always remember, when you're making the choice of which law school you should be going to, always think, is this law school going to prepare me for 5 years from now when I'm actually going to enter the legal profession? The law degree is the longest undergraduate, lengthiest in terms of duration undergraduate degree that we have in India today, right? So trust me, you have to find a degree that's preparing you for the professional world when you're going to enter 5 years from now. And obviously it's going to look drastically different. So it's very important for you to actually look into the website, look into the brochure. What is it that you're going to be studying today? If today, we are talking about, technology laws, if today we are talking about, lots happening in the space of, how artificial intelligence is going to interact with law, or if we are talking about, how we going to manage data privacy in the times when, our data is, taken by, all of these, global conglomerates that we have, how do we protect our identity on social media? When we're talking about these kind of current issues, just see that what you're studying, is it actually squarely even covering these issues? Are you getting a good grip on understanding the context and understanding the background of each of these issues from a technical perspective as well as from a legal perspective? If I talk about pedagogy today, see the kind of faculty they have, see the kind of pedagogy techniques that they have. You don't need somebody who's going to come and, by the rote method going to teach you what does the law say. No, what you need to learn is how to apply. Like I said, you'll have machines to do that. You need somebody who can actually, a law school that's preparing you to be a solution provider, somebody, a law school that's preparing you to be a strategizer, that how you should be strategizing in a matter, how you should be applying the law. So these are the very important questions that you should be asking yourself when you're going into law, or what kind of law school you should be going to. Internships, I think this was something that Samantha was also talking about. Very, very important in the law. Like I told you, there's so many different career tracks that you can take in the law, right? So it's so important for you to actually get a chance to experience these different career tracks, and then sort of decide for yourself that is it, any particular, career track that is actually exciting you, that you would like to take up eventually, right? So look at the fact that what are the kind of internships that the university has provided, or what are the kind of internships the ex students have done, what are the kind of research opportunities that are available today while you're at the university, what are the extracurricular interventions that this have, like apart from the curriculum that they're delivering to you, do they have interventions where they are building your skills, where they're building your attitude, because like I said, this is the area of building your knowledge, skills plus attitude, right? So it's just not building your knowledge only, right? So it has to be a very, very comprehensive sort of building of skills also that needs to happen simultaneously while you're in law school. So having said that, you need to ask all of these relevant questions. You need to see if required. I really urge you guys, have conversations with the deans, have conversations with the faculty, try to understand the learning approach a little better, try to understand what are the kind of seminar courses that you'll get access to, what are the kind of specializations you'll get access to, because a lot of times one realizes that even I come from a national law university, but at some times institutions tend to become very complacent about their growth. They stop looking at the fact, they stop growing at the pace at which the profession is growing, the pace at which the industry is going. So it's really important that you guys ask these extremely relevant questions.